The golden age of Hollywood often glows in memory like a perfectly lit close-up, radiant, glamorous, untouchable. Yet even in that carefully constructed light, there were shadows. Burt Lancaster, born Burton Stephen Lancaster in New York City in 1913, rose from circus acrobat to one of the most commanding actors of his era. His athletic grace, piercing intensity, and moral conviction defined performances in classics such as The Killers and Elmer Gantry. Off-screen, he was known for his strong political voice and independent spirit. While there is no credible evidence that Lancaster ever wrote a secret expose condemning his peers, it is true that Hollywood's golden age was filled with complex personalities. Many of its brightest stars carried private struggles, strong temperaments, and human flaws. Rather than labeling anyone as evil, it is more honest and more humane to recognize that fame magnified both virtues and weaknesses. The legends of that era were not myths, they were human beings, navigating ambition, insecurity, pressure, and extraordinary public scrutiny. Kirk Douglas. Ambition and rivalry, few figures embodied raw ambition like Kirk Douglas. A contemporary and occasional collaborator of Lancaster, Douglas was known for his fierce drive and commanding presence. His portrayal of Spartacus cemented his legacy, and he fought publicly against Hollywood's blacklist by crediting screenwriter Dalton Trumbo. Yet colleagues sometimes described him as intensely competitive, even relentless. In the studio era, competition was survival. Actors were under contract, roles were scarce, and reputations fragile. Douglas's determination could be interpreted as ruthlessness by some and resilience by others. Rivalries between strong personalities were common, especially among leading men who shared similar screen gravitas. What might have felt like personal tension was often the byproduct of two ambitious artists striving for excellence in an unforgiving industry. Douglas's legacy today reflects not villainy, but complexity. A driven performer navigating an era where strength, negotiation, and ego were inseparable from success. Elizabeth Taylor, stardom and turbulence. Elizabeth Taylor's violet-eyed beauty and magnetic screen presence made her one of Hollywood's most dazzling icons. From child star to Oscar-winning actress, her life unfolded in public view. She endured intense media scrutiny over her multiple marriages and passionate romances. On film sets, she was known to be strong-willed and deeply emotional, sometimes clashing with directors or co-stars. But such intensity often stemmed from vulnerability, physical illness, and the suffocating expectations placed upon her from childhood. Taylor also demonstrated extraordinary compassion, becoming one of the first major celebrities to advocate publicly for HIV/AIDS awareness in the 1980s. The turbulence that followed her throughout life reflected a woman navigating extraordinary fame, heartbreak, and personal struggle. To some, she may have seemed dramatic or overpowering. To others, she was fiercely loyal and deeply generous. Her life reminds us that glamour and fragility can exist side by side. Spencer Tracy, talent and private struggle. Spencer Tracy remains one of the most respected actors in American film history, celebrated for his naturalistic performances and emotional depth. Yet his private life was marked by significant struggles, including alcoholism and personal conflict. Colleagues sometimes described him as moody or withdrawn, especially during difficult periods. Hollywood in the 1940s and 1950s offered little compassion for addiction or mental health challenges. Stars were expected to perform flawlessly regardless of inner turmoil. Tracy's long relationship with Katharine Hepburn endured despite obstacles, reflecting both devotion and complexity. Rather than casting him as a tyrant or saint, history paints him as a gifted artist battling inner demons. The Golden Age rarely acknowledged such struggles publicly, but many actors quietly fought similar battles behind carefully curated images. Tracy's legacy, like many of his peers, reveals the tension between public brilliance and private vulnerability. James Stewart. The image of decency. James Stewart became synonymous with integrity through roles in films like It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. His soft-spoken manner and earnest sincerity shaped America's perception of him as the embodiment of decency. Off-screen, Stewart was reportedly reserved and cautious, traits that in Hollywood's high-pressure environment may have seemed distant to some. But he was also a decorated World War II pilot who continued serving in the Air Force Reserve long after his acting fame peaked. Stewart valued privacy and discipline, qualities formed by military service and Midwestern upbringing. In an industry fueled by spectacle, his quiet demeanor may have been misunderstood, yet his career reflected professionalism and longevity. Rather than exposing darkness, his story reveals the gap between public persona and private personality, a gap that exists for nearly every public figure. Marilyn Monroe. Fame, fragility, and myth. Marilyn Monroe remains one of the most studied and mythologized figures in entertainment history. Her beauty, comedic timing, and sensual charisma made her unforgettable. Yet beneath that image lay profound insecurity and emotional pain. Production delays and on-set challenges were sometimes attributed to unreliability, but they were also connected to anxiety, insomnia, and dependency on medication, issues poorly understood at the time. Monroe yearned to be taken seriously as an actress, studying at the actor studio and striving for artistic respect. She was neither angel nor villain, but a deeply human woman navigating extraordinary pressure. Hollywood amplified her vulnerabilities while calm modifying her image. Her tragic death at 36 only deepened the legend. Rather than labeling her as destructive, it is more accurate to see her as a symbol of how the studio system both created and consumed its brightest stars. Errol Flynn. Charm and excess. Errol Flynn's swashbuckling roles made him the epitome of adventure and romance. His off-screen life, filled with parties and scandal, mirrored the daring characters he portrayed. Flynn's appetite for excess, alcohol, romance, risk, became part of his legend. Some viewed him as reckless and self-indulgent, while others saw a charismatic figure living in rebellion against rigid studio control. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. Flynn's lifestyle ultimately contributed to declining health and an early death. Hollywood often romanticized such behavior, framing it as a roguish charm rather than warning sign. His story reflects an era when fame insulated stars from consequences, even as it magnified their excesses. Flynn was not a caricature of villainy, but a complex man shaped by indulgence, fame, and personal weakness. Joan Crawford. Discipline and determination. Joan Crawford built her career through relentless work ethic and determination. Rising from poverty to become an Academy Award-winning actress, she fiercely guarded her reputation. On set, she demanded professionalism, sometimes earning a reputation for severity. Her relationship with her children later became controversial, following her daughter Christina's memoir, Mommy Dearest. Yet historians continue to debate the extent and accuracy of those claims. Crawford's drive reflected a woman determined to maintain control in an industry that often discarded aging actresses. She reinvented herself repeatedly to survive shifting tastes. What some interpreted as cruelty may also be seen as the armor of a woman who fought relentlessly for stability and respect in a volatile system. Lucille Ball, comedy and control. Lucille Ball transformed television through I Love Lucy and her leadership at Desilu Productions. Behind her comedic brilliance was a sharp business mind and disciplined executive presence. Running a studio in a male-dominated industry required authority and decisiveness. Some may have perceived her management style as strict or uncompromising, but it was also groundbreaking. She greenlit innovative series, supported creative risks, and proved that a woman could lead a major production company successfully. Ball's story highlights how assertiveness in female leaders was often judged differently than in male counterparts. Her legacy is one of creativity, resilience, and trailblazing influence rather than cruelty. The Golden Age, humanity behind the myth. The Golden Age of Hollywood was not a fairy tale. It was a complex ecosystem of artistry, ego, vulnerability, and ambition. Stars were crafted into icons, yet they remained human beneath the lighting rigs and studio contracts. While rumors and dramatic narratives may persist, history benefits from nuance rather than condemnation. Figures like Burt Lancaster and his contemporaries lived in an era of intense competition, rigid studio control, and relentless public scrutiny. Their triumphs shaped cinema, their flaws reflected humanity. To remember them honestly is to acknowledge both brilliance and imperfection without resorting to caricature. The legends endure not because they were saints or villains, but because they were vividly, imperfectly human.